He didn't call to wish me happy birthday. He called to ask if I could cover his car insurance. I remember standing in my kitchen, still in my work clothes, staring at the number on my phone screen. My brother. It was a Tuesday. I had just turned 29. I said yes. I always said yes. That was the version of me I'm still trying to understand. The one who kept picking up, kept transferring money, kept telling herself that family means showing up even when it's inconvenient. My brother had a way of making everything feel urgent and everything feel like my fault if I hesitated. He'd pause just long enough before speaking that you'd feel obligated to fill the silence, and I always did. His name isn't important. What's important is that for almost 4 years, I was his emergency contact, his backup plan, and his personal line of credit, and I thought that was what sisters were supposed to be. Let me back up. Growing up, my brother and I were close in the way siblings are close when they don't have much else. Same small house, same stretched budget, same parents who worked double shifts and weren't home enough to notice the dynamic forming between us. He was 3 years older, which meant he got to leave first. College on a partial scholarship, then a job in Phoenix, then a move back home when the job didn't work out. By then I was 24 and had just started a position as a project coordinator at a logistics firm in Charlotte. Entry level, but steady. Benefits. My own apartment for the first time. He moved back in with our parents. That was fine. What wasn't fine was what happened gradually, slowly, so incrementally I didn't notice until I was already in it. It started with small things. He needed help covering his phone bill 1 month because his paycheck was delayed. Then it was 2 months of car payments while he looked for something better. Then it was a loan, his word, not mine, for a security deposit on an apartment closer to a new job. I sent it, all of it, because he was my brother and because our parents were tired and because I had it and he didn't. I kept a note on my phone, not to track it exactly, more just to remember. By the time I was 27, the number was close to $18,000. Most of it I'd stopped expecting back. I told myself that was okay. I told myself family doesn't keep score. What I didn't tell myself was that he had stopped asking how I was doing. He called with amounts, not conversations. He texted when he needed something and went quiet when he didn't. Once, I mentioned that I'd been promoted and his response was a thumbs up emoji, and then, 3 minutes later, a message asking if I could help cover his utilities, just this once. The once never ended. My coworker, the one I sat next to for 2 years, a woman named Gwen who had a habit of saying exactly what she thought with no softening whatsoever, noticed before I did. We were eating lunch at our desks one afternoon, and I mentioned almost in passing that I'd sent my brother money again, and she put down her sandwich and looked at me. "How many times this year?" she said. I thought about it. 7 or 8 times. She just nodded slowly, not surprised, not even sympathetic in the normal way. More like someone watching a thing they already knew was happening, finally get confirmed. "You know he's not going to stop," she said. "Not while you keep answering." I told her it wasn't that simple. She said she knew. We didn't talk about it again for a while. But I kept thinking about it, 7 or 8 times. And it was only September. The apartment he'd moved into, the one I helped with the deposit, was in Tempe, Arizona. He'd moved back to the Southwest for another job, something in sales. He seemed more settled for a while, or at least he called less, which I mistook for stability. I visited once, in the spring. He had a nice setup, new TV, new couch. We went out to dinner and he mentioned at the end that he'd forgotten his wallet. I paid. When I got back to Charlotte, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Not anger exactly, more like a flatness, like I was looking at something familiar from a new angle. And it wasn't what I thought it was. I didn't say anything. I kept sending money when he asked. But something had shifted in me. Quietly, the way things shift when you're not ready to act on them yet, but they're already changing you anyway. The wedding invitation came in October. I got it by email, which should have been the first sign. He was getting married, someone he'd been seeing for about 8 months, a woman I'd spoken to twice on FaceTime and once in person, briefly, at Thanksgiving. The invitation was digital, which is fine, that's common now. What wasn't common was the role I'd been assigned. There was a note at the bottom of the email, separate from the official wording. It said, "We'd love for you to help out with setup on Friday evening and maybe assist with coordinating arrivals Saturday morning. We know you're so organized and good at this kind of thing. It would mean so much." I read it twice. There was no seat assigned to me at the reception dinner. I checked the link to the seating chart. I was not on it. I looked through the wedding party list, not there either. I scrolled through the digital RSVP page, looking for some indication that I was expected to actually attend as a guest. Nothing. I was being asked to work the wedding, show up Friday to arrange centerpieces or whatever, coordinate arrivals Saturday like a venue employee, and presumably disappear after that. I sat with it for 2 days. I didn't call him. I didn't text. I just sat with it and let myself feel what it actually was instead of immediately finding a way to make it okay. On the third day, I called my college roommate. Her name is Beverly. No, wait, I need to correct myself. Her name is someone I've known since I was 18, and she has never once told me what I wanted to hear, which is exactly why I called her. I told her everything: the invitation, the note, the seating chart, the $18,000, the 7 or 8 times just in September. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Have you looked at your bank statements lately? Like actually looked?" I asked her what she meant. She said she wasn't sure, but she'd had a situation with her ex where she thought they were just borrowing money and it turned out there was more to it. She said I should just double-check everything. "Not because I think something's wrong," she said, "just because you deserve to know what's actually going on." I pulled up my accounts that night. Everything looked normal at first, but then I checked my credit report. I hadn't done it in almost a year, which I know is not smart, I know, and I saw something I didn't recognize. A credit card account. A retail card from a home goods store. Opened 18 months ago. A balance of around $400, paid off, now closed. I had never opened that account. I called the number on the report the next morning. The representative confirmed the account had been opened using my social security number, my date of birth, my home address at the time, my old apartment, the one I'd had before I moved, the one where my brother had stayed for 6 weeks once between things. I remember the specific feeling of that moment. Not rage. Not even shock exactly. It was more like a door opening into a room I hadn't known was there, and the room was cold and had been there for a long time. I told the representative I did not open this account. She walked me through the process for disputing it and flagging it as potential fraud. I asked what my options were. She explained that if I wanted to pursue it, I could file a dispute with the credit bureaus and also report it to the FTC. She said I should document everything. I thanked her and hung up and sat very still for about 4 minutes. Then I opened my email and found the wedding invitation, and I just looked at it. I thought about the note at the bottom. "We know you're so organized and good at this kind of thing." I thought about the seating chart with no seat for me. I thought about the $18,000 I'd categorized in my head as generosity. I thought about the credit card opened in my name at a store where I had never shopped, while my brother was sleeping in my guest room. I did not call him. I did not text. I did not reply to the invitation. What I did was open my email on my phone and go to the wedding group thread. He'd added me to one, along with his fiancée and a few other family members, to coordinate, and I replied to the most recent message, which had been sent by his fiancée asking for confirmation of who would be arriving Friday for setup. I wrote, "I won't be able to make it, for setup or the wedding. Best wishes to you both." I sent it and put my phone down and made dinner. The calls started around 8:30 that evening. My brother, 6 times. His fiancée, twice. My mother, 4 times before I finally picked up on the third attempt, mostly because I knew she'd worry herself into a panic if I didn't. My mother's position was that I needed to understand how much this wedding meant to him, that it was a big day, that family shows up, that whatever I was upset about, this wasn't the time. I asked her if she knew I wasn't on the seating chart. There was a pause. She said maybe there had been a mix-up. I told her there wasn't. I told her I'd been asked to come help with setup on Friday and coordinate arrivals on Saturday. I told her I was not a guest at my brother's wedding. I was staff. She got quiet. Then she said, Well, maybe he just thought you'd be more comfortable helping than sitting at a table where you don't know people. I said, Mom, I'm his sister. Another pause. Then she told me not to make a scene and to think about the family. I told her I had to go. I hung up and sat on my couch and felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Not sadness exactly, more like a kind of clarity that felt like grief. My brother texted around 10. He didn't ask what was wrong. He didn't say he was sorry I felt left out. He said, and I've memorized this, I don't think I'll ever forget it. I don't know what your problem is, but you're ruining this for us. We counted on you to help, and now we're scrambling. That's really selfish. Selfish. I looked at the word for a while. Then I went to my files. I keep everything organized, it's a professional habit, and I found all the Venmo records and bank transfers going back to the beginning. I screenshotted everything. 4 years of transactions. I also pulled up the credit report again and screenshotted the fraudulent account with the date range and my personal information listed on it. I did not send any of it to him, not yet. I replied to his text with one line. I hope the wedding is everything you planned. I'll be in touch about some financial matters when things settle down. He didn't respond. The wedding was on a Saturday in November. I know because my mother texted me a photo that evening, the whole family at what looked like an outdoor venue with string lights. Nice venue. Open bar from the look of it. My brother in a suit I'd never seen before, grinning at the camera. I didn't reply to the photo. I just looked at it and thought, I paid for some of this. I just don't know which parts. The Monday after the wedding, I filed a dispute with all 3 credit bureaus for the fraudulent account. I also filed a report with the FTC's Identity Theft Portal, which creates an official record. I consulted with a consumer rights attorney. Just a 1-hour consultation, which cost me $150 and was absolutely worth it. She told me I had a clear case for identity theft and that I could also pursue civil action for the money I transferred if I had documentation, which I did. She told me my options and what each path would look like. I did not pursue criminal charges. Not because what he did wasn't wrong, it was, but because I'd made a different decision about what I wanted my energy to go toward. What I wanted was for it to be done, not drawn out. Not a war, just done. I sent my brother one email, not a text. An email because I wanted a record of it. I told him I was aware of the account opened in my name. I told him I had filed the appropriate reports. I told him that I was not pursuing legal action at this time, but that I was documenting everything, and if anything else appeared on my credit, or if there was any further contact that I found harassing, I would escalate. I told him I was also not going to continue any financial support going forward, and that the money already transferred was gone as far as I was concerned. I wasn't asking for it back. I was just done. I told him I wished him well. I meant it, mostly. I sent the email at 8:17 in the morning on a Wednesday, and then I went to work. The calls started again. My mother, my aunt, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years who apparently had strong opinions about the situation. The general message across all of them was that I was being dramatic, that it was probably a mistake, that I needed to give him a chance to explain, that family was forever and these things happen and couldn't. I just let it go. I let almost all of them go to voicemail. I called my mother back once because I always call my mother back. I told her I loved her. I told her I wasn't angry at her. I told her I needed her to understand that this was not something I was going to change my mind about, and that the more people called me to relitigate it, the longer it was going to take me to feel okay again. I asked her to please stop. She cried a little. She said she didn't understand why everything had to be so hard. I told her I didn't know either. That part was true. My brother never replied to the email. Gwen, my coworker, found out eventually. I told her at lunch, the same lunch table, same desk setup as before. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, which for her was unusual. When I finished, she said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it. Lighter, I said, which is weird. She said it wasn't weird. She said she thought I'd known for a while that this was where it was going and that I'd just finally caught up to something I already knew. I don't know if that's true, but it felt true. The credit dispute resolved in my favor about 6 weeks later. The fraudulent account was removed from my report. My credit score, which had taken a minor hit, came back up within a couple months. My attorney had been right. I had documentation, I had a clear record, and the process worked the way it was supposed to when you follow it correctly. I never heard from my brother's wife. I don't know if she knew about the account. I genuinely don't know, and I've made peace with not knowing. My mother and I still talk. She doesn't bring up my brother when we're on the phone, and I don't either. There's something careful about our conversations now that wasn't there before, a kind of politeness that replaced something warmer, which I'm sad about. But I think she understands on some level, even if she can't say it out loud. She calls me on my birthday now. Just to say happy birthday. Nothing else. That means more to me than I expected it to. My apartment is quiet. I work, I cook, I go to a yoga class on Thursday mornings where I don't know anyone, and that's exactly what I like about it. I have a savings account that is growing steadily because the money I used to send somewhere else is staying where it belongs. I think about the person I was when I answered that phone call on my 29th birthday, standing in my kitchen, still in my work clothes, saying yes before he'd even finished asking. I understand her. I don't judge her. She was doing what she thought love required. She just hadn't figured out yet that the people who love you back don't charge you for it. I keep coming back to that Tuesday, standing in my kitchen in my work clothes, picking up the phone before I'd even thought about whether I wanted to. That version of me wasn't weak. I want to be clear about that. She was someone who had been taught, for years, that love looks like showing up without being asked, giving without keeping track, and staying quiet when something feels wrong, because making noise might cost you something. She had good intentions. She just hadn't learned yet that good intentions without clear thinking are something other people can live off of indefinitely. What I understand now is that what happened between me and my brother wasn't sudden. It was the result of 100 small decisions, his and mine both. Every time he asked and I said yes without hesitation, I taught him something. Every time I told myself it was temporary, I was making a choice to not look directly at what was in front of me. The credit card opened in my name while he was sleeping in my guest room. That didn't come from nowhere. It came from a pattern I'd helped build, one transfer at a time, by valuing his comfort over my own clarity. Gwen asked me once how many times I'd sent money that year, and I couldn't answer quickly. That pause should have told me something. When you can't account for your own resources, your time, your money, your emotional bandwidth, it usually means someone else has been doing the accounting for you. The thing I had to build, slowly and with a lot of discomfort, was the ability to look at a situation honestly instead of charitably. Charitable thinking has its place, but there's a version of it that's really just avoidance dressed up in kind language. I was very good at that version. I could take almost any evidence of being used and rephrase it until it sounded like a misunderstanding. It took me years to understand that seeing something clearly is not the same as being cruel about it. You can love someone and still acknowledge what they're doing. You can wish a person well and still decide you're done. What finally changed wasn't anger. It was the moment I stopped reinterpreting the evidence. The seating chart with no seat for me. The note asking me to coordinate arrivals like a venue employee. The credit report with an account I never opened. At some point, the honest version of a situation stops being avoidable. And when I stopped avoiding it, I had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be on the other side of that knowledge. I chose to be someone who acted without spite, documented without rage, and moved forward without waiting for an apology that was never going to come. That took something I hadn't fully developed before, a willingness to hold my ground even when every phone ringing told me I was wrong. 6 missed calls from my brother. 4 from my mother. The cousin I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. All of them asking me to soften, to reconsider, to come back to a version of myself that was easier for everyone else to live with. I didn't, not because I stopped caring about them, but because I finally cared enough about myself to stop negotiating with people who had already shown me their terms. The credit dispute resolved. The savings account grew. The Thursday yoga class became the part of my week I look forward to most, partly because nobody there knows anything about me except that I show up. I think that's what healing actually looks like for most people. Not a dramatic confrontation. Not a perfect resolution. Just a quieter life that you built yourself. With money that's yours, and time that's yours, and a phone that's yours, and a phone that rings only when someone actually has something to say. The people who love you back don't charge you for it. I learned that late. But I learned it